Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, hang on. We'll be live in a moment.
On YouTube?
Yes.
Okay.
Hang on.
Send him a note, dear.
Yep.
Just say, all good. I won't ask you how you manage it. I can hear you.
Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Truth. I can hear you.
We'll get some.
Truth.
Okay, problem solved. Hello, everyone. Now people can hear me. People will see the Wilfreds. And that's definitely 4 minutes wasted. I apologize. And we're on a tight schedule tonight. But you know what happened, Harmon and Carolyn, is that I put out a video earlier today talking about some of the very persistent detractors, the people who don't want the truth coming out, the people who don't want the information that Harmon and Carolyn are bringing forward to come out. Now, we've got to get through this material kind of quickly tonight within our 1 hour. Carolyn, how has your voter oppression case been going?
I haven't heard anything yet. I did contact my attorney. He said the reason it's taking so long is because this is a precedent-setting case. It's going to change the rule of law if, I should say, when I win. I won't say if.
Right.
I'll say when I win. So I guess that's why they're musing over it and going over it in such detail. Hopefully, we'll hear something soon. But keep praying because this needs to be a precedent-setting case. This needs to change the rule of law so that minority shareholders in private companies don't have to experience the bullying and the oppression that I have experienced in my family company. So please, everybody, just pray for this to happen because
Yes.
we need it. We need it to happen for everyone, not just me, but for all those out there like me who who are not treated very well, not treated fairly.
How do you feel about bullying in general, Carolyn?
Oh, I've never liked bullying at all. But
Because,
when your own family does it to you, it's just horrible.
yeah, I'm sure it's got to be. And, the thing is, we collectively, you, Harmon, myself, I mean, the treatment that you two have faced at the hands of the Five Eyes Coalition is just beyond words. But the people that don't want you to talk about it here on Crowdsource the Truth, they're bullies themselves. Because you see, in my view, when someone has an issue with you, they come forward and they stand up and they say, hey, I've got an issue with you for this or that reason, and they face you like a person of honor and integrity. But instead, what we see are these cowardly bullies who place anonymous strikes on videos like what just occurred only minutes ago. Only minutes before we were to begin this broadcast, an anonymous strike on Crowdsource the Truth 2 has disabled live streaming on that channel. So, a little bit of last minute wrangling, and I apologize for the time wasted at the top of this show. But Harmon, let's get right into your material for today, because I know you've got some truly explosive evidence to share with us. This could be our most shocking episode yet.
Yes, and I'm a little bit conflicted because it's going to take some time to get all this down, and I don't want to shortchange anyone, so we may end up having to go for another session or more.
All right.
Wanted to talk with you about this actually privately, but I guess we can just have a quick chat on the air.
Well, this is exactly what they want to prevent us from doing, having an organized way of presenting this material and make us look, sloppy and unprepared by throwing curveballs at the last minute.
Yeah, without further ado, let me do this then.
Yes.
Where we left off before was we went through the Mitsubishi deal pretty well. We brought it to a point where it had funded. I think the last point I made was when the note was lodged with the U.S. Federal Reserve to be funded, it was reported that President Clinton decided that a deal of this magnitude on behalf of a foreign government had never been completed privately for security reasons. Therefore, he would personally take charge and announce the funding on behalf of the U.S. government. And then the question was posed, could President Bill Clinton have been lying about the note's authenticity? Because, as you recall, the FCC had already declared it a fraud. So there's some very strange things going on here.
Wasn't President Clinton impeached for lying under oath, Harmon? So it is conceivable.
He was, yeah, imagine that.
Tip your screen back a bit, Harmon, so the top of your head isn't clipped, if you would.
Sure, hang on a second. Oh, I got you. Well, it was looking fine on mine, but hang on, let me make sure it looks good on you. How's that?
Much better.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, what I want to talk about today is murder, literally, and the Mitsubishi note. And what is now known as the M Fund, which originally was a 2007 update. Everybody knows that's like 11 years ago, but this was when I discovered some things that were going on with this whole note and really began to put two and two together. And as we said from the beginning, this is about coincidence or preponderance of evidence. And believe me when I say, as you look at this, and you've said it before, Jason, there is a pattern here that is undeniable.
Indeed.
as you recall, I actually applied for refugee status as a political refugee here in New Zealand when I just couldn't get anything else done. I mean, I renounced my U.S. citizenship. I applied for residency out of the just straight residency. I was denied that. I took that on to the appeal court. I was denied that. Ultimately, in 2007, I was forced to apply as a political refugee. I was then in a 2-day refugee, what they call a refugee status interview on the 17th and 18th of July 2007 that was held in Christchurch here in New Zealand, of course. And the reference on this is case history section 34. Now, what I'm going to ask everyone to do is in the Lumina Diem website, and if you can help everyone to sort of locate that right now, Jason, go to section 7, which is the Mitsubishi note stuff.
Case history section 7.
Case history section 7. You can put that on the screen and just guide everyone to that.
Yep. And if people can't easily find Lumina Diem, you can just go to harmonwilfred.com and click on the little blue writing there. So we're in section 7 now. Right.
Now, just there are a whole lot of PDFs, and that's evidence, by the way. That's scanned PDF documented evidence that's going down the left side of the screen. We won't go into that right now because that'll take too much time as we're a bit short on time. But let me do a bit of a narrative on what's there. First of all, you've got the A and B section up there, which is the actual Mitsubishi documents and emails, faxes, letters. There's a timeline in there. There's a whole lot of information in there that will give you an idea of exactly what was going on, and again, being on the inside of the deal, so to speak. But beyond that, there's a section called Murder and the Mitsubishi Note and the M Fund. And this is where I'd like to begin this.
I'm looking at the PDFs now, and you're saying there's one called Murder?
Part C, Murder and the M Fund.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump to that because you got part A and B, which are the Mitsubishi documents themselves, the actual documented case and the deal itself. Then you go to, is it C or D, dear? That, hang on, you just go
C.
look.
This is on the left-hand side of section 7, Jason.
Right.
Yeah, where the PDFs
I see it. Yeah, Murder and the M Fund right here.
Yep.
That's right. Right. So that's where we'll begin. And what I'm going to do is do a narrative of those so that you can sort of cast your net around those and show them while I'm talking. But during this interview that I was doing with the officer for the refugee section, and you had to do these live interviews, I learned some shocking information that I didn't know when we'd actually left the U.S. and came through Hong Kong to New Zealand.
Canada.
And these guys had actually found this out for themselves, and they reported it to me. There was a murder-suicide of an entire family of one of the principals of the Mitsubishi note transaction. And these guys were actually on the team. It was actually 2 people, Mr. Daniel Todd and his wife, Rebecca. And he supposedly or allegedly murdered his wife and 2 children, 2 teenage children, and then he killed himself. And this was supposed to have happened on 9th of June, 2001. Although Mr. Todd was one of the principals in the Mitsubishi note deal, and he was one of the guys that was on the team, I did not know him personally, but I did have contact with him, nor had he ever had any direct contact with some of the people on the team. He was a pretty special guy.
They were both attorneys, were they not?
Yeah. Both Rebecca and Daniel were attorneys on the team, and they were the ones doing a lot of the direct work with the Mitsubishi note and making sure that it got proven up. It was my understanding that I received from my CIA handler, Michael Austin, that Todd was a contact brought into the deal by the CIA and ultimately connected to trustee Marilyn Perry of Bay State Trust, and that's one of the trusts that was lodging the deal and making it happen. Okay. Now, going on to the next little section there. I got an email. When Carolyn and I met a guy named Brendan Howley, who was an investigative reporter out of Stratford, Ontario, which is where we live. We were told about him, and we went to see him, and we said, look, if you're an investigator.
Whoop, Harmon, you've frozen. Harmon, are you there? Connection interrupted. Wow, somebody does not want this. We lost you there, Harmon.
What's that?
We lost you completely.
We lost you for a minute.
You got an email, you were saying?
Yeah, I got an email from a Brendan Howley on 23rd of April 2001, and he called it an interesting development. This guy was doing some investigative reporting on the stuff that we were working on. In early 2001, while we were still in Canada, I received some research on the Mitsubishi note transaction from this independent Canadian journalist. Again, his name is Brendan Howley, and we had met him earlier in Ontario. Mr. Howley was interested in the Mitsubishi note transaction story as this related to Mr. Norbert Schley. Now, that's an unusual name, but Norbert Schley was the former Assistant Attorney General of the United States under President John F. Kennedy. Now, this starts to get kind of juicy. And Mr. Schley's connection to what is now known as the M Fund, and I didn't know this until later on, until 2007, when I started doing some deeper researching. Mr. Howley's research is quite compelling to show that Mr. Schley had evidence to prove that the M Fund, with its ostensible cache of assets and international banknotes, since derived from this fund, were and are indeed real. And of course, the Mitsubishi note fell into that category. Mr. Schley purportedly became an expert on the authentication of these assets and these financial instruments, and as a result of his involvement with the M Fund, was criminally charged and convicted by the U.S. Justice Department in the mid-1990s for dealing in what was categorized as fraudulent instruments. Now, that should sound familiar because, if you recall, before we got everything done, the SEC had declared this particular instrument fraud, the Mitsubishi note deal. However, he was subsequently exonerated, Mr. Schley, by appeal, although the U.S. government has never been willing to disclose any of their secret documents, further confirming the authenticity of the M Fund. Mr. Howley's email and a summary of Norbert Schley's political life and successes, as well as his odyssey with respect to the M Fund, is attached in that PDF that I don't know if you're looking at it right now, posted in the left margin on this page, along with some other summaries. One of them is called Norbert Schley and the M Fund, 21 April 2003. Mr. Schley's obituary, now this is going to be important because you're going to see some other evidence I'm going to be presenting later, and commentary by the Japanese policy research says, as a, quote, highly successful trial and securities lawyer, end of quote, speaking of Mr. Schley, it is difficult to imagine Mr. Schley dealing in fake securities, and in any case, he was completely exonerated after federal prosecutors conceded that there was a possibility the instruments are valid, and that Schley had been wrongly prosecuted.
Harmon, I'm sorry to interrupt, but as I read your document here, it says, at the time, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, the president's younger brother, quipped that Schley, only 33, had been named. So there would be someone younger than him in the Justice Department. I always find it odd when that number is highlighted in a particular piece of information. Please continue.
Okay. Well, as you're reading it, good. As you read through this entire article, note that the similarities between the Mitsubishi note and these notes. And as I looked at it more and more carefully, what I began to realize was the Mitsubishi note came from this cache, so to speak. And as it turns out, if you read through that carefully, you'll see that there may be as much as $400 billion in these notes that are out there. Now, this was new. There's another article called True. Yes. 400 There's another article here called True Lies, Filthy and Filthy Rich Japan, the U.S., and the M Fund, and you'll see that there. And again, it's under Japan Inc.
I've got it.
On 1st of April 2004, as amazing as my personal story and experiences may seem with regard to the Mitsubishi note transaction as it relates to the CIA and the fears for my personal safety and freedom, I truly believe this article sheds some further light on the dangerous nexus between the IM Fund and its direct CIA connection, where the authors of the book, and there's a book called Gold Warriors, Sterling and Peggy Seagrave, provide a compelling note listing the precautions that they have taken should they be murdered. Now keep in mind, we're talking about murder here. The highlighting in this text not only points out the very real fear of murder, but also provides special emphasis again on the similarities between the IM Fund and the CIA activities in Harmon's case, or in my case, with regard to the Mitsubishi note transaction. And again, I'm looking at this stuff, trying to get it all to you, so I'm assuming that you're looking at these,
yes.
PDFs. The following similarities, hang on a minute. Yeah, the following PDF similarities, also listed and attached in the left margin, offer a commentary regarding what I believe can be shown as a direct nexus between the Mitsubishi note transaction, the IM Fund, and the murder of the Todd family. Now, as you again look at this, what I've got here is I've got some emails, because when we arrived in New Zealand and we were given this information from Brendan Howley, we were told to contact Norbert Schley. Instead of us contacting him directly, Carolyn and I decided to get our local attorney, Mr. Rutherford, to contact John Rutherford, to contact Norbert Schley and see whether or not this was real and see whether or not we could get anything done. And so Rutherford,
well, it was attorney to attorney, so we figured that they would be more open to speaking with each other.
That's right. This PDF email communication, which you've got there in a PDF, brings the IM Fund connection and my grave concern for myself and my family's personal safety and freedom full circle, as Mr. Schley points out his personal suspicions to my New Zealand attorney, John Rutherford, with regard to the Mitsubishi note. He said, what's involved here is Japan's secret fund accumulated before and during World War II from occupied countries. Now, this is something we talked about before, Jason.
Yes.
The United States has never admitted it exists for the very good reason that it profited greatly from the fund, which should have been but was not returned at war's end to the people from whom it was stolen. And the US CIA has used this money for a great many purposes that will not stand the light of day. Now, that's the direct quote from Norbert Schley. Then the next thing that we're bringing up is the Ohio family. This is an article, Ohio family shot to death, ruled murder-suicide 9 June and 12 June. They were actually shot on 9 June, and the ruling came out on 12 June 2001. These are just two of the articles that I found to corroborate the information on the horrifying death of the Todd family. Now, when I say I found these articles were originally found by the refugee interviewer here in New Zealand. I wasn't aware of them, and then I started doing some more digging. Other articles on the web pointed out that Todd was fined up to $200,000 and was under disbarment as an attorney for tenaciously attempting to authenticate the Mitsubishi note. In spite of the SEC's effort to punish Todd for his persistent attempts at authentication, he reportedly continued his determination effort to prove the note's authenticity, as he was convinced at the time, as was I, and I continue to be today, that the note was and is indeed real. Such had also been my effort up to and during that time frame, certainly not to transact or assist anyone to transact the note, but to expose the truth regarding the note's source and the authenticity by openly and officially attempting to present my evidence to the SEC, to the Securities and Exchange Commission, President Clinton's attorney, of which we talked about in the past, and even to the U.S. Justice Department. And of course, I did all that when I reported everything to the U.S. Justice Department, but all to no avail. Interesting that Todd and his entire family turned up dead on June the 9th, 2001. In March 2001, me and Carolyn started receiving phone calls at our home in Ontario, Canada. This is after I'd finally gotten out of the federal prison in the US and was forced to be released back to Canada. We started receiving phone calls at our home, including hang-ups and requests for our residence location for quote package deliveries that never came. Because of this and other unexplained harassments, we both left Ontario for Victoria, BC, and subsequently we were warned out of Victoria to Hong Kong by Chinese operatives who told us that the CIA were looking for us outside of Ontario. We left for Hong Kong on June the 30th. Now, I'm telling you all this, and I'm going to put this together in a timeline here shortly, so you don't necessarily have to remember all these dates, but put them together in your own mind. We left for Hong Kong on June the 30th, 2001. This was 3 weeks after the Todd's purported suicide. And we were warned out of Canada. We were told get out, and we didn't know that the Todd family had been killed. We subsequently arrived in New Zealand from Hong Kong on August the 11th, 2001, without returning to Canada. Now, another article that you've got over there is called "The Urban Myth Exposed by Trial, 18 September 2003" by the BBC.
Did you want to before you move on to that? Did you want to cover the Sam emails regarding the Todd murder?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Let's say this will just take us a few minutes.
Okay.
This particular article, this BBC article, is a report on the 2003 London, England fraud trial of a Michael Slamage and a Graham Hawksworth with regard to an attempt to transact Japanese bank bonds in their possession. These bonds were purportedly delivered to Daniel Todd, here he is again, as a U.S. middleman who was an expert at these, who claimed to have links with the CIA or the Treasury in June of 2001. He then, at that same time, took the Mitsubishi note and these bonds and presented them to the West Virginia U.S. Bureau of Public Debt in the Treasury Department. A few days later,
I want to make note that they were in a box because that's important. That will come up later.
I know. A few days later, June the 9th, 2001, Mr. Todd apparently shot dead his wife, Rebecca. I say apparently because that was a report. And their children, Nathaniel, 13, and Dominique, 16, at their home in Strongsville, Ohio, before turning the gun on himself. Slamage said that the CIA had killed the previous person who had brought these Federal Reserve notes to the U.S. government. It was reported to the BBC in an interview with a Cleveland Bar Association member who was pressing for Todd to be disbarred. He said that Mr. Todd was suffering from delusions. Now, keep in mind here, I've also been told that I was suffering from delusions. In fact, I was told that I was crazy, and when they were trying to deport me out of the country, I was told by New Zealand immigration here that they were going to deport me with a carriage certificate. And the carriage certificate was the only way they figured they could get me out of the country, which I had to be deemed crazy, and I still had to be a citizen of the U.S. Well, I pulled out my certificate saying that I was no longer a citizen of the U.S., and I went to see a psychiatrist who examined me and deemed me not crazy, so they couldn't use that. So this wouldn't be the first time that somebody's tried to deal with this stuff and they've been deemed crazy. This was what you call an on-the-spot hearsay story and psychological evaluation. There was no formal evaluation that actually determined this. And this came from another lawyer, so it was hardly credible and certainly doesn't explain why Todd would logically go to the U.S. Bureau of Public Debt to authenticate these bonds and then allegedly kill his entire family and himself a few days later.
Harmon, I would also add that this murder-suicide of the whole family by someone who everybody that knows him said was way out of character matches almost exactly the MO by which Philip Marshall's family was murdered. And he, of course, was blowing the whistle on 9/11.
Gotcha.
So it all ties together.
Now, in the 2016 update, what I found was President George H.W. Bush family connection. Now, again, this is where, as I was working with the Mitsubishi note deal just before I left Canada, and I contacted one of the guys that was really high up in the whole thing, said to me, "You're not going to believe the people that are involved in this." And at the time, he had told me some of this, but now it was reported to me in 1998 by this Liechtenstein trust contact that was transacting the Mitsubishi bond, that there were unbelievable top world figures involved in setting up what he eventually found to be the independent CIA Clinton Black Ops funding, including President George H. Bush, and he was director of the CIA in 1976 and 77 during the Iran-Contra arms deal. And you and I have talked about that, Jason.
Yes, and you know, Harmon, I've got a particular personal interest in the Iran-Contra scandal. I remember being a young boy and watching the hearings on television, and there's recently been a very pesky troublemaker who has come into our sphere here who claims that he was captured by the Sandinistas, which the only time that I am aware that any U.S. personnel would have interfaced with the Sandinistas in Nicaragua would have been during this time frame, the Iran-Contra scandal. All these billions that you're talking about seem directly linked to that, don't they?
May I interrupt for 1 minute?
Please.
My daughter says that she's trying to get on YouTube and watch it, and she says it's not working.
That is because the channel Crowdsource the Truth 2 has received an anonymous complaint that's resulted in a strike preventing live streaming. So please ask her to go to 21C3D on YouTube, and she can watch the live stream on the 21st Century 3D channel, which I'm sure is very likely to get an anonymous strike from some anonymous coward very soon. And I now might get...
What is it, 21C3?
21C3D, the 21st Century 3D YouTube channel. And of course, 21st Century 3D is my motion picture production company that remains an active corporation, but we are not producing any 3D movies anymore, so we can use it as a funnel for these live streams. Harmon, please continue.
Yeah, they really don't want this stuff to get out, do they?
They do not.
Well, and I will say this about what I'm telling you now, is that I've told you before that it was only the tip of the iceberg. We're now diving down into the iceberg.
Yes.
I will tell you this, Jason. With all the latest things that are going on, and now I'm without, or Carol and I are without each other now for 2 years and 7 months, we've really determined we've had enough. We're pulling out the stops on this.
Yes.
This just cannot happen anymore. I'm no longer afraid of these guys.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, and Harmon, I would just add that what you are doing is extremely brave. You are risking your safety, and of course, I am as well. I appear on here with you and Carolyn. Each of us are taking tremendous risk to bring this information forward, unlike the cowardly individuals that are doing these anonymous complaints and striking the channel and putting out false information under fake names to try to discredit me, to send you emails, to try to convince you to do interviews with people like Robert David Steele. That happened. I don't know why someone watching Crowdsource the Truth would think that you should interview with Robert David Steele, and they're certainly free to send you that message, but it's a piece of information I'd like the viewers to be aware of.
I see. Well, now I want you to look at the PDF over there called FTR. It's by the FTR blog, radio host, an investigative reporter named David Emery, dated March the 6th, 2005, called FTR, and it's the blog number 501, Norbert Schley and the Strange Case of the 57s.
Yes.
Now, in some circles, this M Fund notes were called the 57s, and you'll read that as you look at that article. We can't really go into this in detail because there's not time, but anybody who wants to read that, please read it in detail. You'll be shocked. In fact, Carolyn was reading some of it in detail this morning and forgotten some of the stuff that was in it. She was still shocked.
We've been through so much, it's so hard to remember everything.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, we are inundated with information. We've been doing this I've been doing this for 20 years, and so has she. This report confirms the connections long since reported in my story I was excited to find this, between the M Fund, the Mitsubishi note, here's some names, Oliver North, and here we come, the Iran-Contra arms deals, and now the Bush family
Yeah.
and others. You'll see who the others are in there. The Clintons discovered and took over this CIA covert bank funding operation personally, the one that I set up for them in 1997 by exercising presidential authority over the U.S. Federal Reserve. It should be no surprise that the Clintons' financial power and the influence has soared since the end of Bill Clinton's second term as president. And then I'm saying to everyone, imagine the unfettered power the Clintons would have should they have ever imagined to retake the White House or manage to retake the White House. In my verbal account during the refugee status interview, recorded by voice DVD, and by the way, I've got that all transcribed, I told the officer about the phone call that I'd received from a named CIA agent during the Mitsubishi transaction, identifying himself as a past CIA cleaner. I think I've mentioned this in one of our previous
Yes.
interviews. And as such, in the event if anything went wrong, an operated sort of coded problem, the agent's assignment was to clean it up, or in other words, go in and kill everyone involved with the problem. The agent then demanded that I immediately cease asking controversial questions, as he stated, quote, curiosity killed the cat. The email warning had also that I also received from Mark Austin, my handler, through my then business partner Colin Finn in Colorado in April 1998, while I was incarcerated in maximum security Canadian prison, made the agent's point even more poignant. I mean, when you're in prison, guys, you're not safe. These guys have people in prisons all over the place, and then you're confined, they can get to you. And I felt as though while I was in there, I was on death row every day. I didn't know if and when I was going to die. The people that are involved, this is what this email said, the people that are involved won't let the deal be blown by someone screwing up. They will go so far as to eliminate the problem. And then my question comes, did Daniel Todd become a problem to the CIA as he persisted in his effort to authenticate and thereby expose the Mitsubishi bond publicly to the time of his alleged suicide death and the murder of his wife and law partner, Rebecca, and their two children?
Wow.
Although this latest research and evidence could be cast aside as circumstantial, up to the point that Daniel Todd and his entire family were found dead in their home, other than showing a lack of good judgment, even to the point of his willingness to openly defy the SEC, and of course I did that as well, and I sent them packing the day that I met with them with my attorney up in Toronto. And the law, he was defying the law, defying the SEC, to prove his point. There appears to be no credible evidence of aberrant behavior to bring Todd's sanity into question to the point of committing the alleged horrific suicide of his entire family. I didn't know this guy personally. However, I did know Marilyn Perry personally, met with her many times. She's the one who assigned him to this whole thing. And I cannot believe that she would assign anybody into this kind of a deal who had any kind of problem even remotely like that. Okay. Now, any questions right now? Because I'm going to take you to some evidence that's going to blow your mind.
Well, I mean, what you're describing, Harmon, are threats, people telling you don't ask questions. We see this type of behavior even now. You know, innuendo, subtle suggestions, don't go there, you know, striking the channel, trying to prevent us from broadcasting, people attacking your credibility, people attacking my credibility, whatever they can do to prevent this information from getting out, they seem to be doing.
Okay, now I'm going to take you, if you're still on that page, Jason, and if everyone else is on that page, that again, section 7, case history evidence, go to the PDFs on the left side where it says Part D, CIA Todd murder evidence. You see that?
It's at the bottom, yeah.
Yep. Now, PDF number 1, which is it says November 12th through January 16th, and this is 2008. While Carolyn and I were still here together in New Zealand, of course I'm still here, she's in Canada now. One day, because my website, my Luminidium documentary website had been up since 2005, And by the way, nobody has ever challenged me openly or legally or otherwise to take it down, because if they touch it, they give it life. So
They've
it's
tried
just
to
been
hack
sitting.
it, but
Yeah, they tried to hack it and bring it down, but otherwise nobody's formally ever challenged it. Because again, if they touch it, they give it life. By 2008, we were receiving the occasional email on our site. And by the way, we have also had an analytical program on the site, and we were constantly being able to check to see who was on the site, because we had a rather sophisticated one. And we had everybody from the DoD, the CIA, the FBI, the Department of the Army, Department of the Navy. I've got a record of all of that, by the way, of everybody who was on the site. In fact, in some cases, we actually had a program that would take the
IP
link,
address?
the what?
IP address?
Yeah, the IP address, and we could actually put it into Google. We had a special program, and that particular IP address, and many of them were. I could even pinpoint the room number that they were in the Pentagon.
Wow.
And I've got record of that, by the way. Anybody who wants to see that, but I'd sure like Michael Horowitz to see it. So I was definitely on their watch list. In fact, we had a guy at one point in time who was a PR person out of Canada who found out what was going on. He wanted to investigate it, and he was talking about doing a movie for us. He decided that he was going to pick up the phone, and I told him not to, and call the CIA, because he had a friend there, and he asked the question. First of all, he said, "I'm working with Harmon Wilfred. I'm doing some research," and the guy stopped him and said, "Did you say Harmon Wilfred?" He said, "Yes." He said, "You don't want to be doing that." He said, "Why?" He said, "Because we're doing an update. We're literally doing a
every
we're
two
having a
weeks,
meeting. Yeah,
every
we're
two
having a
weeks
meeting
we have a
on him
meeting.
approximately every 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
doing updates on what's going on with him."
Every two
You do not
weeks,
want
the
to be doing that.
CIA was having a meeting about you, Harmon?
Yeah,
That's right. That's
that's
right.
right.
That's right. So, and now this is what this guy told us. I won't give
Wow.
you his name right now, because he ended up getting hurt over this. So I don't want him to get hurt anymore. But I told him not to call the CIA. So then he says to the guy, "Look, you and I are friends. All I want to know," and he was talking about the Todd family, is was the Todd family murdered by the CIA? And the guy, dead line, the guy tells me. He said, "Look, if he wasn't murdered by the CIA, just say no. If he was, just be quiet." Line quiet. And the guy said, "That's all I need to know," and he hung up. Well, it wasn't long after that, this particular guy had a major stroke that really disabled him for quite a long time. So, coincidence? The guy was 42 years old?
Yeah.
Who can tell? But anyway,
And not too many people have strokes at the age of 42, Harmon.
no. So here we are. We're in New Zealand. We're being monitored. These guys are doing updates on us. The CIA and goodness knows all these other different organizations are constantly on my website watching.
As I'm sure we're being monitored now.
That's right. That's right. And then in 2008, because I had my website set up with a Luminidm email address, I get an email, and we were getting emails pretty regularly from people who were curious about the site, and were emailing us, as you do with an email, with a website. But now open up November 12th to January 16th.
And Harmon went by Sarah.
Yeah. In my Luminidm email address, I was now scroll all the way to the bottom, because as you know, whenever you get a series like this of emails, the earliest one is at the bottom. Scroll all the way to the bottom. Okay.
Right.
And I am Sarah. In other words, anybody who emailed me, they always email to sarah@luminidm.com.
I see.
And so somebody emailed Sarah, which of course was me. And look at the comments at the bottom. This was the first email. This was first contact. "I was the person who found the Todd family. I have other information to share with you regarding the Mitsubishi instrument. I met with former President Cerezo," and that was from Guatemala. That's when we were putting the deal together for Guatemala, "at the Todd family home. I knew Mrs. Perry," that would be Marilyn Perry of the Bay State Trust, "via telephone, etc. I am still attempting to get things right." Now imagine getting a message like this. Scared the hell out of both of us.
Did you ever
looking
speak
at
to
it and
this
thinking,
person further, Harmon?
Well, let's carry on. I wrote back after really considering it seriously, saying, how far are you willing to go with this? We have high level contacts at the UN. Now, if you looked at the timeline, which we'll show you in a few minutes, you'll see that during this time I had a case going at the UN Human Rights Council, and I had an attorney on that out of India who was representing me in Geneva.
Wow.
And we were thinking, wow, what an incredible bit of evidence that we could throw into the UN human rights case. And maybe we can do it in such a way that this guy could be kept safe. Because we needed, I mean, I knew I was being monitored. This guy sends me an email, and I know he's being monitored. He's obviously under an alias. And by the way, I have blacked some of this stuff out on purpose because I didn't want to give away even his alias. We're going to call him Sam, which was an alias, but I didn't even want to give away his full alias. I thought, if he's still alive, but I'll explain that in a minute. How far are you willing to go with this? We have high-level contacts at the UN Human Rights Council who would be very interested. However, it is not our wish for you to place yourself in any risk at all in any way. Let us know what you have in mind. Let's go back up. He says, I do not know. I have all the information regarding how these items were tied through the Treasury instruments. Now try to imagine this. This is 2008. We're still here. I'm stateless. I'm not able to get any status, and I'm still wondering about every knock on the door and every ring of my doorbell, and you know. However, since the deaths, the electronic system has been altered. The old data I possess is still in hard copy. My question is one of practicality. Who is going to protect us? Now I'm thinking, wait a minute, this guy was on the team. I'm willing to fight, but where is the backup? Mr. Todd and his family were victims of their own zeal. I respect him, though at times he could be a bit bizarre. The issue was we had was his extreme paranoia and did not allow the rest of us to properly be informed, and likely was the cause of his demise. In other words, he was quite zealous about making sure that this document was proven as real, because I was that way as well. If you recall, I met with the president's attorney and said, this is crap. This is a real document. He was doing the same thing, only he was sitting there at ground zero, running back and forth to the Treasury Department in Parkersburg. Going on. I was there with him when he delivered the box to Parkersburg.
Remind people who might not have heard previous episodes what the president's attorney, Gregory Craig, said to you when you met with him to say this needs to be exposed.
That's right. I confirmed with him, based on what I'd been told even by the couple of people in Colorado, if you continue to work on this, you will never see your children again. And he said, yep, that's right.
And so far, he has held to that promise.
That's right. I've not seen my kids up for over 20 years. Then he says, now this is important, guys. I was there with him when he delivered the box to Parkersburg. Remember we talked about earlier those other articles that we found where he had been taking these bonds to Parkersburg to get them confirmed? Parkersburg, by the way, is the U.S. Treasury Department in Virginia. I have the videotape. That's the videotape of the murder, by the way. I have the information on the Mitsu, but I want someone with authority to step up and act in concert and provide the necessary documentation and protections in order to move ahead. Please advise. Imagine me being put in that position. I'm still here wondering about my safety, and he's saying, can you keep me safe? What can we do together? I've got all the information. I've even got the videotape of the murder.
Now, the murder, he's talking about someone video recorded the murder of the Todd family?
You'll see in further emails.
You'll see this further on. He got there before anybody else did. Now, keep in mind, he's a part of the CIA. I finally figured out who he was, but I'll show you how I did that. And I'm not going to tell anybody. But he says he got there before the police did and pulled the security tapes and found them murdered, because he was going back and forth to Todd's house, of course, working with him.
So this was a security system in the Todd home that he got the recordings from.
That's right. That's right. I said to him, I'm on it. I'll get back soon. In the meantime, is there any way you can courier me your hard? Now, I was being a bit naive at that point in time, knowing that we were being monitored. Courier me your hard drive copy information and the video if I produce a FedEx account number. I was trying to make it easy. He writes back and says, Sarah, there is quite a bit of printed material, approximately 2 file boxes, plus all electronic records. The tape is on a mini VHS. I will send what I can, what I can do about, I'll do what I can about getting it converted. Can you be more specific as to what you're looking at, or what you want
You
to look
know,
at, please
I would
advise.
also add, Harmon, that in 2008, even though that was 10 years ago, getting access to a VHS
Yeah.
player and a compact VHS, which was a miniaturized format, introduced,
Yeah.
I think, in the 80s, towards the end of the life, early 90s perhaps, end of life. No, it was the 80s. In Back to the Future, 1985, that was a new format. Marty McFly had a VHS-C camcorder, which
Okay.
utilized a compact format that required a mechanical device to access that tape. So I imagine you had substantial difficulty in getting the material off of this tape.
Well, let me carry on. I'm going to try to get through this within the hour. So we've got about 10 minutes
I've
left.
made arrangements during the show to extend, so please take the time that you
Okay.
need.
Okay. Again, I'm reading this. I mean, we can all read, but I want you to get a sense of what was going on. I want you to hear what's coming from my gut, and Carolyn will interject some things. What we were feeling, what we were thinking while we were going through this. I said to him, "We're working on an approach." And by the way, this is no coincidence. My UN human rights case in October of 2008, just before this guy contacted me, was dismissed, and we then put in for a, uh, uh, a judicial review, which I told you about before, and renewed it. And it was just after that that Carolyn's all of her assets, because it was against Canada, were frozen. All this stuff was going on at the same time. So if you want to look at part of the timeline, whenever this guy contacted us, and we contacted the UN Human Rights Council, excuse me as I say this, the shit hit the fan. I said to him, this may take up to 30 days for us to get the safety that we might require. It is best to hold on providing any evidence. Now I'm saying, don't send me anything. Oh my God, until we've got some sort of a safety net completed. In the meantime, keep your information secure and maintain your personal safety. You have lasted this long, so we are confident that you know what you're doing. And I still didn't know who it was, not for sure. We are also concerned that this email is not secure. When the timing is right, I will provide a secure email address and telephone number for further communication. Be well and remain patient for a little longer. He writes back and says, look forward to your contact. I assume you know who I am. And I said, I didn't know who he was. So I said, I assume, I asked him if he knew where I was, and he said, yeah, I assume. Now, some of this stuff, there's some emails in between. I didn't put all the emails in here because there's such sensitive information in some of these in between emails that I only gave you the what I felt was the relevant ones that I could expose. So I said, I assume that you know where I am. And he said, I assume New Zealand. Of course, they said that in my website, so I wasn't surprised about that. Then he says,
And then you said, you're right, Christchurch.
you're right, Christchurch to be specific. Okay, I'm not going to read everything because we'll just take up time. Okay. And then I'll wait to hear from you when appropriate. Any insights you can provide would be much appreciated. Okay, this was Sam. Okay. So then I wrote to him and said, any news, hope you're well and safe. No. He wrote that to me. I then said to him, because we had a tech company at the time that did VoIP, we actually had phone numbers that we had set up around the world. And like I've got one right now in Toronto. You can call that and it'll ring my phone here. You've seen this stuff before. I'm sure most people are familiar with the technology nowadays. Then it was brand new. And I said to him, it's possible that I can, depending on where you are, because I had no idea in the world where he was, depending on where you are, it's possible that we can provide you a phone number. You could call that number and we can secure that line. He says, I'm in the US. What do you suggest? My money is rather limited at present. Then I said to him, I am amazed that you are responding to me so openly from the US. Now, imagine this. I started getting a little suspicious, or at least a little paranoid. Am I being set up by somebody to get myself involved in something so I really could get myself arrested internationally?
I know
So I started
exactly how
becoming
you
a little more
feel,
cautious.
Harmon.
Yeah, I'm sure you were thinking that already. I am amazed that you're responding to me so openly from the US, knowing that my email server is being monitored by third parties. Also, calling from a U.S. phone number these days is not secure, so we couldn't give them a phone number in the U.S., even to one of our own numbers. Are you still there? Okay, I thought I heard somebody hang up or something. Is Carolyn still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Although I personally have nothing to hide, I'm concerned that the information you have may compromise your safety. Please wait for a little longer and we'll be able to communicate without concern. I will have more information for you in January. Enjoy the holidays. It's just before the holidays, just before Christmas. Okay, he says, you as well, thank you. And then we all sort of concluded. Now,
Well, then it starts in on January 2nd.
in January, I wrote, Happy New Year. Hope the holidays went well. Let me know if you have gotten any response from your people. This was Sam to me. And I wrote back and said, yeah, hope you're well. Please let me know if anything is happening. I have information to share with you too. So here we go. Now that's the first email. Now take that one down and go to the second email. Go back to the website. Go to the second email. January 15th through April 24th. Go to the bottom. Sarah, okay, from Sam to Sarah. Any news? I write back and say, we're getting some traction. Please confirm that you're still with us and you're well. I will get back with you in the coming days. He writes back and says, what did he say? Yes and yes. Okay. Okay. Then I write and I finally say to him, okay, you're going to consider this question a little funny, but what is your religious denomination and affiliation since birth? Now, I had a reason to ask that because I had gotten to know personally all the people on the team that I was on, the CIA team. Several of them I'd met personally. One of them that I had some suspicions about told me some things about his religious affiliation that were quite shocking, especially considering where he was from in the world. You would never have even come close to guessing, and he shared that with me personally. So I said, what's your religious affiliation? Now, I've got it blacked out. Just above that, you'll see the word Orthodox. The religion I blacked out. When he put that in there, and it's not what not even close to what you'd think, like Jewish or whatever. I knew it was him. I knew who it was then for sure. That was when I verified who it was. Okay, go to the next email. Go back to the web page. That's right. Yeah. And I won't tell you which religion it was, which Orthodox religion it was, but it absolutely confirmed who he was. So I knew who he was.
Harmon, I'm sorry I'm slightly distracted, but I'm receiving messages from people about videos that are being frantically posted right now to try to discredit me, to try to separate me from Robin Gritz and other people that we've been dealing with. So that's interesting to note that that activity becomes so furious even right now as you're releasing this material, as the channel, they attempted to take it down. We're looking now for May 19th through 23rd, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so back to the emails.
This is just one email. There's a blank page there, so you have to get above that.
Okay.
All this says is the alternative to couriering the evidence is we can have our attorneys contact each other. And I gave him my attorney's phone number. He then eventually, and I didn't want to give out any names that he gave out, so I didn't include that email in, but he then emailed me back and said, okay, I've got an attorney. Here's his name. Here's his phone number. Have your attorney call my attorney, blah, blah, blah. So that's what this particular email was about. So, okay, close that one.
Well, you do say, whoa, there's lots more.
We just lost Harmon.
Did we?
We did. All right, let's see if we can get Harmon back here. He controls this this video call from his end. I'm not sure how. We lost him there. How can we get him back, Carolyn? A lot of activity here. I'm receiving information that someone has just posted a video I haven't seen, but a lot of people emailing me about it, and the nature of their questions lead me to believe that the video is not true. We'll have to see.
Oh, here he comes.
Harmon coming back?
Yeah.
Hello, Harmon.
I don't know what happened there. I had to completely reboot it.
Very strange indeed.
So
Please
if you go back to that email, There's
The fourth one,
no. The one that we were on before, there's quite a large email that says, where Sam says, Sarah, there's no way for me to get the information there quickly. The tape is on a small recorded tape.
yeah.
You see that?
Is that in the, what's the date of those emails?
That was in the one that we were just
May
looking at.
19th to 23rd?
Yeah. I'm going to May 19th to 23rd. Hang on a second.
This is May 19th to 23rd, and I don't see anything from Sam about that. He's talking about the attorneys and everything.
Yeah. Did I do May 12th to May 19th?
May 12th. May 12th.
I think I missed that one.
He says, Sarah, there's no way for me to get the information.
Do May 12th. Yeah, I missed that
Carolyn's
one.
correct. Okay, so there's May 12th.
There's no way for me to get information there that quickly. The videotape is on a small recorded tape, and I have no way to make a copy. I can scan and email most of the other information to your attorney. The issue is not one of anonymity. They will know immediately who I am.
Right.
Once the information is presented. I gave 6 hours of testimony to the SEC in regard to the Mitsubishi instrument when the case of Mr. Todd, Marilyn Perry, and so on was being investigated. To the best of my knowledge, the investigation and the case were sealed. Now keep in mind, the case, everything, and I believe even the murder investigation was sealed under Title 50 of the U.S. Code. If you know what Title 50 is, it's the catch-all. That's what they use for anything that they can call national security. I have all of the research and data that I did on a Mac notebook from the time. It is all there, and the hard copy of even the Bloomberg screens, the financial screens on it, is available. My main concern is now keep in mind, we're talking about families here. My main concern is for my family's physical safety and what repercussions there would be to me personally. I realize you can give no assurances, but I do not want to suddenly disappear or get held as an enemy combatant. And we all know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
That's Guantanamo Bay.
Right. And obviously that's what we've got this, let's just call him Crazy Dave. He's been trying to set up a false set of allegations to get me regarded as an enemy combatant, so I can just be thrown in jail without any rights.
Yeah.
And I think he's a dangerous character, that Crazy Dave.
Right. Now he's saying at this point in time he'd be happy to be a part of the teleconference on a secure line, okay? But he said, I would like something from the court, and he's talking about now the Human Rights Court, because that's where I've been trying to work this through with, for protections that can be afforded by coming forward with the information, as I do not believe that there will be any benefit to me personally for this testimony, which I never expected. However, I also do not want to risk the physical harm or incarceration for whatever contrived explanations could be provided. Now, you can tell he's getting a little bit squirrely. He's a bit scared. You can't blame him. This guy, now that I know who he is, he's a veteran. He's part of the old guard. He's no young chicken, this guy.
What old guard? What old guard is that, Harmon?
The old guard were the guys who originally brought me the Mitsubishi note originally out of Cuba.
I think what happened with this, and this is sort of my opinion, I think what happened with this is this gentleman who has family. I mean, Harmon and I have talked about it. It's one thing to, not that I condone it at all, but it's one thing for a CIA cleaner to go in and kill somebody who's supposedly a bad person, who's doing something.
Assassin, yeah.
Assassin. I mean, we've all thought about that with Assad, haven't we? But it's another thing for somebody to go in and kill an entire family. And I think because this man is a family man, he was like, holy crap, excuse me.
One of the things he told me privately when I met with him in Florida is that
he had children.
More than anything was his family and his children.
To kill an entire family and to make up this cockamamie excuse that, the guy was crazy, he thought about aliens, and that was 3 days after he went to the SEC. It makes no sense. And then
the Treasury Department,
we all know how they spin it and blow it all out of proportion and say stuff like that. But I think this fellow, who's a family man, just went, this has gone too far. this has just gone too far. They've killed a family.
Yeah.
So let's, if I can possibly try and make it right, I will. So yeah, anyhow, we'll
I
keep
mean,
keep going.
that's very important, Carolyn, because that speaks to how incredibly evil these people are. They're murdering individuals and their innocent families who are coming forward with this information. This should scare people. We need to be aware of what these guys are up to. It's not good.
No, no, it's not.
And
So
then I went on to reassure him, without reading every word of this, that we have not revealed his identity, that we are continuing to work with the Human Rights Commission. But then the Human Rights Commission have the gall to put a date on this thing. We have to have this by May 30th, otherwise your case remains dismissed and we won't accept it. Of course, you've got a name in here, this Navintham Pillay. He's the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights out of out of Geneva, and of course I blacked out Ganeet's phone numbers, who was my attorney. He said, it's hard to, even this brings back some really heavy emotion. Anyway, I tried to reassure him. It was a little while later. He writes to me because he's getting nervous and he's saying, any news? And I said, yes, we'll get back as soon as I can. I'm trying to work with the United Nations. They're giving me a hard time. Ganeet's trying to work with my attorney. We're trying to say, look, there's murders that have occurred here. You've got to be kidding me. You guys have got to be willing to accept evidence around this thing. And this was, by the way, this was against Canada, but it was also against the Clintons. Because keep in mind, we're talking about the deal that went down, the Mitsubishi deal that's now funded. This is April. It's so everything's all banked. The covert funding is in place, and these guys are doing everything they can to ensure that it doesn't get revealed or exposed. They're basically tying up loose ends. I mean, this was back when all this stuff was going on, when the deal was first done, and they'd already funded the first covert funding, and I'll go over that one in the timeline in a moment. But all of this just, anyway, let me carry on. Starting from the bottom, because I started from the top on that one. I said we're getting some traction, Anyway, I don't think this one's as important as the next one. Let's go to the next one. Anybody who wants to read these can read these, but you can see the communication. Let's bounce on to the last one.
Right, and just so everyone knows, these messages are coming from the Luminadium website, which people can access by going to harmonwilfred.com and then clicking on the blue text that says Luminadium. So now you'd like to see the June 8th through September 9th messages, Harmon?
That's right. That's right. And keeping in mind, these have never been released before. We're now below the waterline. This is not the tip of the iceberg. We've gone under. Okay.
Right. And there are people who knew we were going to do this today who have become extremely aggressive in their measures to prevent this information coming out. So people should definitely share this live stream. People should subscribe to periscope.tv/CSTheTruth and be aware that there are active measures being taken to prevent Crowdsource the Truth's YouTube channel, as well as the Crowdsource the Truth 2 YouTube channel, from bringing you this information. Right now you're watching Harmon Wilfred, America's first refugee, and this is Harmon Wilfred, former CIA contractor who was working with clandestine operatives to clear a Mitsubishi Bank bearer bond valued at over, what was the amount, Harmon?
Well, it's over $6 billion, but ultimately it was traded in for $15 billion in Treasury bills.
Very good. So
looking at this last one, going to the bottom of this last one, we were making we had some communication. He had an attorney named Joe that we got all this information on. That's all I'll say, and that's all it says in this email. His name is Joe. I made contact with his attorney. We had some discussion. He was going to go have a meeting with his attorney. We were going to get my attorney on the line. We were going to at least start having some discussion and see if we could make some headway on this. Okay. He was supposed to be there in a conference call. He wasn't there. I told him, look, after Joe and I talked, we scheduled a conference call for last Saturday. We tried it, you weren't there, and he writes back and says, sorry about the miscommunication, I did not know about the call, let's try to reschedule. So we're about to make contact here. We're about to actually talk about things and get an attorney involved. And I called him again, or I emailed again, and I said, I spoke to Joe today. We have a pretty good understanding of where we are and what we need to do, but we still didn't talk to him, and he still hadn't delivered everything to his attorney. It's because the attorney was saying, I'm waiting for him to get here. When I get everything, we'll take it all, we'll put all the information together, and then we'll determine what to do with the evidence, okay? So from Sam to me, he says, thanks for the update. I will speak with him and let you know the results as well as I can. I appreciate your sentiments, and I agree. You know, I'm saying, stay safe. Then I get this email from him. We have been dealing with some issues that our mutual friends, okay, we all know who that is, have created for us. We're talking about the CIA. Those should be resolved in the next few days. We should set up a call with all of us somehow. I am not too concerned about the methodology. Do you use Skype? Skype was very new back then. We can set up a call where probably 99% secure. We know that's not true, at least nowadays, based upon the people that I know who know what is and what is not. Guys, that's the last time I heard from him. Gone.
Wow.
Disappeared.
So we have no idea if this individual is even alive at this point.
No.
That's right. That's right. Contact his attorney, gone.
The attorney is gone too.
Well, couldn't contact, the numbers were gone. There was no other way I could contact him. I had no other numbers on him. I looked him up as an attorney to try to find out as much as I could about him, or more than, and I couldn't get anybody anymore. So both Carolyn and I decided, look, if we continue to try to pursue this, if these guys have got him or they've done something with him or whatever, I think we're just going to hurt ourselves. So we buried it until today. We buried it. We just said, leave it alone. Now, as I say that, we didn't bury it entirely, because during this process, well, let me go through the timeline with you now, and I'll tell you about what else we did. We actually involved the Vatican at one point with this.
Oh yes.
Which is quite unusual.
Where can
Okay.
people find the timeline?
We could do an entire show on the Vatican.
People would like that, I
Yeah,
think.
we could. Wilfred versus the Vatican. We might do that, Jason. Okay, go to the bottom of those same list of emails, and you'll find a PDF that says crossover timeline, 1999 to 2009.
Okay. Hang on, I've lost my mouse.
Open that
there.
one.
Okay, bottom of the email list. Huh.
Bottom of section 7, the PDF list.
Okay, let's see if we can get
Which-
you to stay there.
Where you just were,
Yep.
right where the emails were.
Working on it. Okay, so bottom of section, so crossover timeline, yes.
That's right. Open that.
It's open.
And again, I say coincidence or preponderance of evidence, because that's the name of our summary that we have for every one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm just going to go through this quickly, but I want you to note. Now, what I did with this is I said, all right, I'm going to look at a lot of different things that are going on at the same time during this process. And I'm going to see if I can find the connections. But I haven't even begun to dig deep enough to find all the connections. This is just a cursory. This is what I want Michael Horowitz to do. This is what his job is. He's an inspector general. He should be the one doing the investigations on this. I've got all the information, but let me just go through this. October 2000, a request to the U.S. Justice Department, Michael Horowitz, for a criminal investigation. You saw that earlier, right? Now, 1999 to 2001, during that same time frame, John Suthers assigned executive director and deputy Department of Corrections. If you recall, he got knocked out of the box for becoming state attorney general. So he took the consolation prize and became the director of the prisons in Colorado.
Interesting.
Coincidence? April 10th
And that's when
to May
Harmon was in
30th?
jail.
April 10th to May 30th, 2000. Harmon incarcerated in Colorado, federal prison, county prison, and the Denver City Jail. No charges, no bond. Direct violations of the Hague Commission Treaty. And this was done with federal marshals.
Mm-hmm.
January 2001, John Suthers appointed U.S. federal attorney. Wait a minute. Federal marshals were assigned to this? for the District of Colorado by President George W. Bush. January 17th, 2001.
There you've got,
Horowitz,
there you've got Bush involved in it again.
that's right, that's right. Horowitz, delayed confirmation of receipt of request for investigation. What? John Suthers becomes the U.S. federal attorney. Horowitz is delaying the investigation against Suthers and the Clintons. February 2001. William J. Clinton Foundation, officially founded at the end of Clinton's presidency, just in time to launder, this is my comment, just in time to launder funds from the Mitsubishi transaction, question mark?
Well, now wait a minute.
That's exactly when the first funding took place, the $15 billion.
And this is explosive, Harmon, because now, perhaps,
it's going to get worse.
We are discovering the purpose of all of the fraudulent iterations of the Clinton Foundation that Charles Ortel has been speaking about for 3+ years. He's been talking about how it was never properly organized. It has never properly filed taxes, and it remains a giant money laundering operation.
Yeah.
Perhaps this Mitsubishi bearer bond worth over $6 billion.
Well, $15 billion.
$15 billion. Perhaps this was the source of funding for the Clinton Slush Fund, the Clinton Foundation, the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, William J. Clinton Foundation, Clinton Health Access Initiative.
It's not perhaps. I absolutely believe it was.
As Harmon said with the Mitsubishi note, that the Clinton, Bill Clinton found out about it, and then he, as a matter of presidential security or for the good of the country, he took over the Mitsubishi note transaction. He felt he had to do that. So of course, I mean, any dummy could figure out, oh my gosh, Bill Clinton's taken it over. Of course. And then right after that, he starts the Clinton Foundation. Of course they used it for money laundering.
And in the process of this, we meet with Bill Clinton's attorney, Gregory Craig, who says, of course it's
corrupt.
The Mitsubishi is real.
Yeah, of course it's corrupt. Of course it's not real. Of course it's fraudulent. But of course the Mitsubishi deal is real. Of course it's real.
What was he saying is fraudulent? Because I recall that conversation with you, Harmon. You told me that he said, of course, the government is corrupt. What do you want me to do? Get them all fired?
That's what I was trying to say.
That's right. Oh, you got a good memory, Jason.
And what did you say to him when you were asked what you'd like him to do?
That's part of our Twitter hashtag, get them all fired. He said, what do you want me to do, Harmon? Get them all fired? I said, yes.
Yes, get them all fired.
That's exactly what Horowitz's job is right now, as far as I'm concerned. Because Horowitz is now, Horowitz is investigating the intelligence services. Keep in mind, the FBI, as far as I'm concerned, the CIA and the U.S. Justice Department.
All colluded to make this happen, correct?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we know a certain apathetic CIA troll, self-proclaimed apathetic CIA troll, who has been trolling this broadcast for 9 months and exceptionally hard today. An apathetic CIA troll who, by his own admission, was captured by the Sandinistas, which in my view indicates that he would have been a contractor to the CIA working in Nicaragua at the time of the Iran-Contra scandal. Do you agree with that, Harmon?
Yep.
Thank you.
Now, keep in mind, we're in 2001. We all know what happened in 2001, so keep that in mind as we go forward. All the loose ends are being tied up. The Clinton Foundation is created. The Mitsubishi deal is funded. The first $15 billion is put into the covert account. I have been set aside. I have been put in prison in Colorado. All this stuff is moving forward, okay? On March the 15th, in the month of March, and I can't tell you the exact date because I was contacted. The Mitsubishi note was confirmed. Oh, I can tell you. That's in the Mitsubishi documents in A and B and those PDFs on the left side there. There's a document in there where there was a full letter by one of the guys that was interviewed by the SEC where he reported when the Mitsubishi exchange was taking place, actually took place, what banks were involved for the $15 billion in U.S. Treasuries. And by the way, just to let everybody know, the Bank of China was involved in this. And that's also in the letter and affidavit by one of the guys on the team.
Mm.
The Mitsubishi note was confirmed and exchanged for 15 billion in U.S. Treasury bills to set up the covert bank to provide funding now keep in mind to provide funding. This is what I was told for the first CIA undisclosed black ops operation, March 2001. March 15th, 2001. Horowitz declines request for USJD, for the U.S. Justice Department investigation. He declines it.
And this was the information that we used to determine that he is a swamp creature.
That's right. Now, here's something else. And again, this is coming to mind as I look through this that I could have put in this. It was March that Carolyn and I felt so threatened because I'd just gotten out of jail, okay? And I finally got back to Canada. And by March 2001, we were getting all of these strange calls to the house, and we got scared. So that's when we packed everything up and we took off because we knew that something was up.
Well, both Harmon and I, we woke up one morning and intuitively we said, something is very wrong. We need to leave. We packed our bags.
Going on.
Yeah, we packed our bags, and the very next day we were out of there, house closed. And then that's when we told you that the elderly, we locked Harmon's office. We made sure all of his documents were put in a safe place outside of the house. And that's when the elderly neighbor lady got a visit from the police who said they had received a 911 call from our home and they needed to get in because we left her with a key. So she let them in, and then it was the office that was locked, and they said, oh no, the 911 call came from this room. We need to get into this room.
Baloney.
Wow.
So
she had no key to that.
They broke into that room. They broke into that room, and of course they didn't find what they wanted. But honest to God, what a load of crap.
During the month of March, we drove north, and we stayed in an undisclosed place on a lake in a very secluded area for a period of a month or so. Then we went on to Ottawa, met with some friends up there on agreement. They put us in a van because I didn't want to use any of my credit cards or any of my IDs at that point. They put us in the back of a van. We packed all of our stuff in the van. They drove us all the way across Canada to Vancouver, and we went to Vancouver Island, and we parked it there because no one knew that we were outside of Ontario at that point. And that was like a 5-day trip.
Oh, so, so it was a long trip. Canada's a big country. To drive from one end to the other, I think it took us.
We got temporary lodgings in Vancouver Island, out of Victoria. Again, nothing in our names, in our friends' names, and they stayed with us there. So during this time, from March until we actually left Canada, and I'll go over that in a minute, we were in hiding. But we had guys that from the intelligence services that were friends of ours, and here's where it gets a bit squirrely. We had 2 Chinese operatives who were also on the inside who were telling us what was going on. These guys had an interest. These guys had an interest in what we were doing. But go ahead, dear.
I want to say that from March on until August, actually, my family, my children, my parents, my brothers, nobody knew where we were.
And we couldn't reveal
tell nobody.
That's right.
And my family thought I was crazy, and I
mean, you can imagine what they were going through. You have to have some empathy for them.
And let's remind everyone, Carolyn, that your brothers or your father had offered you money and a home to abandon your husband and step away from this whole thing.
Yeah, that was when I was in New Zealand. He offered me. He said, if you divorce your husband and come back to Canada, I will buy you a nice house. You can find yourself a nice young man, and I'll give you a small salary. And I said, no, thank you.
That's quite
While
crazy.
we were on the run, we were keeping in contact with a secured email with the guys that knew what was happening. I won't say who. Well, actually, it was I can say who because he's no longer with us. It was Colin Finn, and Colin Finn was keeping up with what was going on through our attorney to know what was happening with the U.S. Justice Department in the investigation. And in May, while we were in hiding and while we were on the run, May 2001, that's when the second response came from the U.S. Justice Department, again declining to do any investigation on all the information we provided.
And was that Michael Horowitz again? Yes.
Yeah, that was Horowitz's. What they said was, we're going with the first decision that Michael Horowitz gave, and it was the Department of the Public Integrity section of the Criminal Division. So they sent us an email saying, no, we're going to continue to agree with the original decision. We're rejecting the opportunity to investigate this whole thing. June the 6th, 2001. Now, it's all going to come together. Daniel Todd presents the Mitsubishi documents to the U.S. Treasury as authentic and reports corruption. June the 9th, 2001, Todd's family is murdered. They call it a murder-suicide 3 days after his report in person to the U.S. Treasury. June the 15th, 2001, I was instructed by operatives, and these are the Chinese operatives, to get out of Canada to Hong Kong. Now, what we didn't know is we didn't know about the Todd murders at the time. We didn't find that out until we got to New Zealand. And it was the Refugee Board here, with their research, who told us that the Todd family had been murdered. We didn't know.
We
but when
were
we were
shocked.
told to get out, when we were told to get out, we didn't realize that they were not just looking for us, they were cleaning up.
Yeah.
This is just...
You narrowly escaped death,
Yeah.
it would seem.
We have experienced.
This brings it all back.
Yeah. I mean,
June
the
the
number
15th,
of times
2001.
the number of times that we have felt that our lives would be taken is too many times in a lifetime. Too many times in a lifetime.
Every border we crossed,
Oh yeah.
every knock at the door, you name it.
Sitting watching TV, thinking a bullet's going to come through the window.
Yeah. June 15th, 2001, we were instructed by operatives to get out of Canada to Hong Kong because they said, unquote, they now know you're not in Ontario, so they're going to find you.
Yeah.
I said to them, well, wait a minute, I've got to use my passport to do that. These guys somehow assured me, these were Chinese guys. They said, we've got a place for you in Hong Kong. We've got people ready to meet you there.
Yeah.
Chinese guys. Just go and you'll get through okay. Just trust us. You'll get through the customs all right, and you'll be able to get out of the country. Don't know how they managed to do that.
Why did these Chinese operatives want to help you?
That's another story.
That's another story.
That, in fact,
that's a big story.
that's bigger than the Mitsubishi stuff. But
Yeah.
Wow.
these guys had an interest in me, and they wanted to make sure that I was kept safe. Okay, so let's not do that right now. Let's finish what we're doing. And by the way, we might cover that in the next. I'm looking at the possibility of covering that with and keeping in mind China was also involved in this whole thing globally. We might do one Wilfred versus the shadow government, but the shadow government, believe me, Jason, is much bigger than the U.S.
Well, let's keep moving on this.
Yeah. We were instructed to get out of Canada. We departed Canada on the June the 30th, arrived in Hong Kong, and we were supported by Chinese operatives. And by the way, I've got their names, I've got their passport pictures, I've got communication by them. Everything I'm telling you here, I can provide evidence for, but all the evidence is very hidden, very copied, very scanned. Nobody can get it away from me. Now, coincidentally, August the 1st, 2001, John Suthers is appointed as U.S. Attorney for Colorado. So he's still out there hunting and pecking, and now he is the U.S. Attorney for Colorado. He didn't get it by vote, which he should have gotten it by vote. That was when, I think I told you before, the guy that was the U.S. Attorney was taken on to the U.S. Senate. So John Suthers was appointed by the governor of Colorado to be the U.S. Attorney for Colorado. August the 9th, 2001, We were instructed by the Chinese operatives to get out of Hong Kong.
Wow.
This was about 6 weeks after we arrived, that we were no longer safe from the CIA in Hong Kong. If you recall, that was within about a year when Hong Kong was converted over back to China from Great Britain. And there were Chinese soldiers, 2 by 2, all over the place in Hong Kong.
I
Talk
tell you,
about scared.
every time we went through a border, I tell you, I thought I was going to die of a heart attack.
We would go outside and just walk along the street, and these Chinese
Oh
soldiers were
yeah,
checking everybody's papers, checking everybody. You would have thought it was
with machine guns in their hands.
yeah, you would have thought it was Nazi Germany. So here we are. Now imagine what we're going through. We were instructed to get out of Hong Kong. Now we had to go through another border to get out of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was the Chinese
Mhm.
operatives or the Chinese guys who had to get us out of Hong Kong safely. Well, I don't know what they did or how they went about it, but they said, you can cross the border, you can get out, you'll go through customs in Hong Kong, but you need to get out, and where you go is up to you. So they couldn't protect us anymore. So we literally went to a bookstore, got out what is it?
Yeah, I had a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend who had immigrated to New Zealand years before that and said it was a really nice country. And Harmon and I had always wanted to see what New Zealand was like. And we got a Lonely Planet book on New Zealand.
That Lonely Planet. That's what I was trying to remember. Yeah, we got a
Yeah.
Lonely Planet book, and we started looking, and we looked at New Zealand, and we just thought, all right, it's as far from the U.S. as you can get on the other side of the world.
That's right.
It's English speaking.
Yeah.
Let's go. So we bought ourselves a ticket and got out of there as fast as we could on August the 9th. Okay, or I'm sorry, August the 11th. And then we arrived. Well, we left early in August. It was about a 12-hour flight, and we arrived August the 11th in New Zealand, in Auckland. Keep in mind, 1 month later, now you've seen all the things that have happened with this. Funding is set up. Everybody's, they're cleaning up their loose ends. September the 11th, we turned on the TV in the apartment we were on in Sumner Beach in Christchurch, and we were in shock to see the Twin Towers fall and the Pentagon attack. And I have to say this, out of all of the investigation that I've seen on the 9/11 investigations, no one has followed the money. No one has listened to me. No one has come to me and said, let's have a look at what you've got. And I have even sent this to the 9/11 investigation, and I've also sent it off to there's a group that came together for all the relatives that were killed in the 9/11, the fall of the towers. I even sent it to them. No one has replied.
Architects and engineers for 9/11, nothing?
Nothing. No one will touch it.
So where did they get the money to pull this off?
Now, keep in mind, we're now in New Zealand. And on February the 10th, 2002, we requested help from Norbert Schley. Remember Norbert? The
Yes.
former Assistant Attorney General to JFK?
Yes.
Who was an expert on all of these Mitsubishi documents? Because I had two issues going on. One with my kids, and of course knowing that Norbert was an attorney, and the other was I just wanted to do everything I could to prove that the Mitsubishi deal was real. And when I got this information from Brendan Howley, the investigator, I thought maybe this guy can do that.
Well, we actually
Norbert
spoke to him
Schley.
on the phone.
Yeah, once my attorney talked to him a couple of times, and I actually got him on the phone and we worked with him. He recommended some attorneys in Colorado who refused to take the case, which didn't surprise me because they were so intimidated by the then state attorney general who was
John Suthers.
John Suthers. But Schley then agrees to assist me. Keep in mind this was just after, in other words, from February the 10th, the attorney contacted him. That up to around the end of February, we were going back and forth with him, and in the beginning of March, we were going back and forth with him in communications. And I have all those communications and the ones with my attorney. He agrees to assist us in confirming the Mitsubishi deal. He told our attorney, of course it's real. Yes, I can help you. I would be happy to help you. Let's start working on it together. And I'll also recommend some attorneys in Colorado so you can get your kids at least in a safe position. So we started working on this. It went right into March. March the 25th, 2002, Norbert Schley has a paralyzing and ultimately fatal heart attack while jogging.
How old was he at the time?
70.
It's fairly
But he
plausible.
jogged regularly, I'm told. He was in really good shape. I mean, again, coincidence?
It's the
Or
it's the ti- it's the all
preponderance of
it's the
evidence?
timing that's really
Right.
interesting.
And of
Yes.
course, Harmon, we know from the 1978, I believe, Church Committee hearings where the Senate Intelligence Committee was investigating some of the covert operations of the CIA. We know that they possess technology whereby a poison dart, a frozen chemical in the shape of a needle, can be shot at a victim to induce a heart attack. And unless this specific chemical in the poison ice needle is being tested for, it just appears to be a heart attack. And certainly, if you were to shoot a 70-year-old man while he's jogging with that dart, he'd have a heart attack, and your autopsy would basically be open and shut,
Yeah,
and that'd be the end of it.
yeah.
We all know the CIA has many ways to make those things happen. In early 2002, approximately, and I say approximately because I got an email from, remember the name Phil Freitag? Phil Freitag was on my team out of Colorado, and he was the investigator who was assisting us with the Mitsubishi deal, as well as my marriage. Uh, Phil Freitag emails me from Belize. He got the hell out of there. He moved everything lock, stock, and barrel out of Colorado and moved to Belize. I got an email from Phil Freitag in early 2002, somewhere in that March range, I suspect, February, March. My business partner, Colin Finn, who had continued to be challenged. When I'm on the run, Colin Finn is angry as hell, if you can imagine, in Colorado, because they've broken into his apartment, they've taken all of his documents, they've taken his computer, they've taken his livelihood, and this was, by the way, with a search warrant. They took the Mitsubishi stuff, they took all the evidence that I had against others, because some of it I had stored with Colin. And he's ticked off, so he's going after him, right? He's reporting all this, he's going to the police, he's trying to get an attorney to challenge them and so on. So again, he's trying to challenge the El Paso County DA's office and John Suthers, as well as the Mitsubishi deal. His apartment gets raided by the police, and all of Suthers and Mitsubishi evidence is confiscated. Bill Freitag then reports that Colin has suddenly died of liver failure at 54. I mean, Colin drank beer. We all do occasionally. But liver failure? Loose ends, guys. Loose ends. The Clintons and the CIA could not afford anybody questioning anything about this, because the funding that they got in the $15 billion first funding, 34 more notes, they'd already had 11 of them signed over. Can you imagine them and the intensity around making sure that this is not touched by anybody and that it's completely cleaned up so that they can carry on with that funding annually until all that money was funded? And as I said, early 2002, Phil Freitag relocates lock, stock, and barrel to Belize, Central America. That's his last known residency.
When's the last time you spoke to Phil Freitag, Harmon?
I've deliberately not tried to reach him. I've looked him up, and I've seen where he was an engineer for a couple of real estate projects down there. Now he's in his 90s now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Phil was in his 70s back then. This is 20 years later.
Well, we're not sure that he's still alive, but yeah.
I'm not sure he's still alive. I know his wife passed away because I found an obituary on his wife. But I've stayed away from him because I didn't want this to happen to him.
So then we've got November the 12th, 2008. We
Yes.
got that first email
That's when we got
contact.
the first email contact from who I call Sam.
Sam.
May the 6th, 2008, or 2009. After all of that communication, and we just gave you smatterings of it, there's all sorts of other communication in between those of things that I couldn't reveal. May the 6th, request from, we went to the Catholic diocese here in, because we were just We were trying to come up with a way to get Sam's evidence that could be completely out of the purview of the CIA. And it occurred to me after working with the Vatican before, with the Mitsubishi note deal, and believe me, they were in it up to their eyeballs, especially with the projects and stuff that were supposed to be funded out of Guatemala. It occurred to me that I could have some friends there and I might be able to get some favors. So Carolyn and I went to the diocese here in Christchurch and met with the bishop here of the Christchurch diocese. His name was Barry Jones. And we asked him for assistance, and we gave him copies of knowing that he was a bishop and knowing that, he needed, the attorney-client privilege, the priest and so on, the privacy privilege. We took a chance and we said, look, here are a number of emails, and we showed him what the emails were, and they were current then, so obviously Sam was still available to us. Would you please do some checking with the Vatican and see whether or not we can utilize the Vatican's courier from facility from embassy to embassy, the internal courier system. If you will allow that, I will get Sam to Washington, D.C. to deliver this stuff to the Vatican Embassy in Washington, D.C. And then it can be couriered to the Vatican Embassy in Geneva, and we can then get it to the Human Rights Commission privately, and the CIA hopefully can't control that. Carolyn went with me. We had a friend of mine also go with us as a witness to see this Barry Jones, the bishop. He said he would check with the Vatican. He took the information. They came back to us and said, nope, we're not going to help you. Now imagine, we're talking about a whole family that's been murdered. We're talking about evidence of murder. We're talking about evidence of murder at the highest level with the CIA and involving the Clintons and so on. The Vatican, the Western moral authority of the world.
Supposedly.
Did they
no, we're not gonna
offer
help you.
any explanation at all, Harmon, as to why they wouldn't help you?
No, they wouldn't touch it. He said, I can't tell you why. Typical what New Zealand immigration is saying to us now. No, we're not going to help you. No, we're not going to intervene, and we don't have to tell you why.
And of course, we went to the Vatican. We went to the Holy See in Wellington, their embassy in Wellington, to ask
about a year ago to see if they would
ask for help
assist us
for
to get back
refugee
together.
status, and they've refused as well. So yeah.
Well, initially, the embassy here, the ambassador, the Vatican ambassador, was quite open. He said, "Yeah, I think this is something we'd like to help you do. This is obviously wrong. I just need to get permission from the Holy See, from the Vatican itself, from Rome." We said, "Great." So we were excited. This was about a year ago. I've got all the documents on that as well.
Perhaps that guy
And I also
was new.
explained to them, I disclosed to them and explained to them how the Vatican was involved in the deal in the first place, feeling like they might actually take some responsibility for themselves.
No.
Got a letter back saying the Vatican, the Rome has declined to be involved. Done. Wouldn't communicate with me after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then September 9th, the last
September 9th,
message.
I got the last message received from Sam before he disappeared. And that's the
September
message
9th,
you see there.
2009.
That's right.
Harmon emailed and said, "Are you still there?" And we heard nothing.
Yep. Gone. If this
Too many
doesn't run
people.
chills down your back, God Almighty.
Too many people have died because of greed, because of the Clintons, because of power and money. Too many people have died, and it has to stop. It has to stop.
It's a powerful story that you guys have shared with us here. I think people who've been watching for the past several weeks since we first met you would agree that this is a horrendous situation that no one should be subjected to. I don't think we wanted to elect Bill Clinton president or George H.W. Bush or George W. Bush so that they could commit financial crimes to the tune of billions and billions of dollars and launder the money through improperly arranged and improperly recorded financial transactions of a foundation that is, in fact, a gigantic money laundering organization. They use these billions to control the flow of information in the mainstream media. Their cohorts control major news outlets. They control things like Google, things like YouTube. And when they can't achieve that level of control over small operations like Crowdsource the Truth, they have nefarious, sometimes anonymous operators, sometimes led by apathetic CIA trolls who appear to be crazy, who do all kinds of things like threaten me, like try to make people think that I've called in a bomb hoax. You know, they trotted that out again today, Harmon. This ridiculous narrative that they constructed 9 months ago, where they provided the information that there was depleted uranium on the Maersk Memphis. Something I heard today from the mouth of Lieutenant Zorn of the Coast Guard right there in the port of Charleston, that there was no uranium found. He said nothing out of the ordinary was found. But he also reiterated that bringing such a matter to their attention, given the level of information that we had received and the level of danger such a shipment of material would pose to the local authorities, that we as concerned citizens bringing that information forward were not guilty of a crime. I did spark his interest in investigating the source of the information and the source of this notion that it was a dirty bomb hoax. That's a narrative that began to come out right away. We heard Robert David Steele say that I was to be under arrest by the NYPD at order of the Coast Guard. He sent me an email saying that. He started this notion that I would be arrested and that there was a dirty bomb hoax. Manuel Chavez, of course, did several broadcasts where he spoke about a dirty bomb hoax, a dirty bomb threat. Of course, George Swigert brought this information to me from unknown sources, and I trusted George, which was probably not wise. But now George's brother is one of the individuals who is relentlessly putting out videos, intimidating and threatening me, making up ridiculous stories. Now David wants to go to the sheriff in West Hollywood. I'd be happy to meet him there. And for people who want to see me meet Dave at the sheriff's office in West Hollywood, where surely I have no plans to harm Dave. He's substantially larger than me, claims to be a military veteran. He's made all kinds of firearms training videos. I think he has plans to harm me. But I would feel comfortable meeting him at the sheriff's office with law enforcement officers around. I'm sure he has some ginned up information that he wants to share. He was, according to him, involved somehow in Nicaragua in the early 90s, in the 80s, whenever. I'm not sure of his time frame, but seems to correspond with all the financial dealings that you've been talking about, Harmon. And he has been dedicated to attempting to discredit me and take down this channel. So I definitely want to remind people that the best way they can counteract what appears to be disinformation from sources like Dave Swigert, American Intelligence Media, Douglas Gabriel, the best way to counteract that is to sponsor Crowdsource the Truth so that we can keep going. You can do that at patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You can do that at paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. Dave has given us video testimony that he intends to attack and disable the sources of funding for Crowdsource the Truth. People can also email truth@crowdsourcethetruth.org. I can generate a private custom Bitcoin payment address for you because, of course, Manuel Chavez maliciously revealed the financial transactions of my cryptocurrency account. This was an act of harassment attempting to give people less confidence in sending cryptocurrency payments to us. And if you email truth@crowdsourcethetruth.org, I can also share with you the address here at HQ in New York, which has been put on the internet many times. People can search my previous companies. I've made no effort to hide my location, unlike some of these other operatives. I've asked them to give me their location so that I can have the proper authorities issue them temporary restraining orders, which would be the first step in taking legal action against these individuals. The police don't just go arrest people for harassment. You first need to notify them, and they want to put a temporary restraining order on this person so that if they violate that restraining order and continue to harass, then they can be arrested. So my address is available. Anyone who presumes that I'm harassing them, which I most assuredly am not, well, they can attempt to get one of these temporary restraining orders. But it's interesting that all of these individuals, operatives, whatever we want to call them, they go by multiple names, they hide their locations, they make videos under fake names and hoax channels, they get involved in elaborate hoaxes, they try to give me fake data in the form of Seth Rich files, they try to set up these fake events where I do a broadcast based on information coming from trusted sources at the time, like George Swigert, put that broadcast out based on information that he provides, stating that depleted uranium on a ship could be precursor materials, could be a dirty bomb, could be extremely dangerous. And based on that level of danger, we inform the authorities to check it out. They determine, based on their findings, that they need to close the port. I never called in a bomb hoax. By the time I called the Coast Guard, I said, my name is Jason Goodman and I'd like to report A, and the person on the other end of the phone working for the Coast Guard said, dirty bomb, indicating that somebody had already called them. Now, was that person a member of this audience that was incited by the information that we provided? Or was that person an operative in this collective that's run by David Swigert, where he incentivizes people and he puts together teams that include Manuel Chavez? And I have evidence of all this. I have a recording of David Swigert talking about Manuel Chavez, DeFango, Sugar Shine. These are all people that we see on the comments for Dave's videos, for these videos, trolling, trying to prevent this information from coming out. So I ask everyone watching, when I present Harmon Wilfred and his wife Carolyn, and they are separated, connected only by a digital video connection over the internet. Harmon hasn't seen his children from his previous marriage in almost 20 years. He's now a man without a country. He is totally unprotected by the rights that we all hold so dearly as members of the United States of America. And that's the right to confront your accusers, not to receive cowardly anonymous complaints that prevent the Crowdsource the Truth 2 YouTube channel from broadcasting this explosive information that has never been presented to the public in any format whatsoever. Information that could tie the Clintons, the Bushes, and various members of the CIA to the financing and cover-up of the attacks of September 11th, 2001.
And murder.
Horrendous. And other various murders of individuals and, the people that we've named in this. I mean, there's at least 5 or 6 people that I've just named that could be connected to all this that are gone. Some of them are murdered. Some of them have died mysteriously. I would say at this point in time, Jason, this is new information. Is it now enough for a U.S. Justice Department investigation, Mr. Horowitz? Would you please step forward? And you, President Bush, President Trump, Freudian slip.
Yes.
I have the information. I have the evidence. I would love to share it with you. I've done the best I can with it. You guys obviously have ways and means of doing a lot more with it. Here it is. Come and get it. Investigate. I'm going to keep doing this until somebody steps up. I'm not going to stop. I'm without my wife. I'm without my children. Why would I stop? Come and join me. I will join you. I will help you investigate these things. We will bring out the truth. That's what you're supposed to do, Mr. Horowitz, is bring out the truth.
And President Trump. We've been trying to get a hold of President Trump for months and months and months, and no response.
Since early 2016, when I first wrote the letter to him saying, come and see my evidence. I'll help you drain the swamp. So I'm saying it again and again and again. Come, I'll join with you. Help me reunite with my family. I will work with you. We will drain this swamp. And in as much as Gregory Craig thought it was funny, we will get them all fired. I promise you that.
It's
If
the
you
only
really want to
hope,
get it
Harmon.
done, show that you want to get it done. Let's do it together.
It's the only possible hope for the future, Harmon. Either we live in a world that's controlled by criminal enterprises, financed through money laundering and black ops banks, or we expose the truth.
And I have told the truth, and this has been my payment. I believe there's a higher reward in this that is the reward that says, know the truth and the truth will set you free. Well, I'm ready to be set free, have my rights restored, and assist wherever I can in making sure that other people can have their rights restored as well.
Harmon, if there's anything else you'd like to share for tonight, I think we're close to the end of this segment.
I'm spent. I really am.
I'd like to just say that I have responded to the live chat and comments on the last video. It's all posted on there, so I will do that with this one as well by the end of the week.
And I pray that we'll get the live video going with YouTube. I know you'll work really hard on that. Meanwhile, I'm hoping we can get this thing posted. We'll have it on my website. And I would ask everyone who's listening to this, let's go viral. I really believe the only power on earth that's going to stop this is the power of the people, the power of the grassroots, the power of the internet, the power of social media. Get it on your YouTube, get it on your Twitter, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, whatever. Get it on those things and tell 5 people, tell 10 people, tell them to tell 5 or 10 people, and let's explode this thing onto the scene and stop this mess once and for all.
And there's also the power of prayer, and I thank everybody for praying for my court case, because that will change the law for a lot of people. And I thank everybody for praying for our safety, for Jason's safety and Harmon and me.
Absolutely.
And I would, as a final note, remind those people who think that it's funny to submit anonymous strikes on YouTube videos and to try to shut down Crowdsource the Truth. You can hate me, that's fine. You can dislike my opinions, you can dislike my religion, you can dislike where I'm from. But this is real information that people need to see. So if you're participating in David Sweigert's activities, if you're liking his videos where he's threatening me, where he's spreading false accusations of criminal activity and insinuations, if you're his brother George and you're doxing my ex-wife and trying to draw me into your ridiculous shenanigans, all of you are blocking this information from coming out. And everyone needs to ask, why would they do that? I hope everyone will share this video, tweet it at President Trump, tweet it at John Suthers. If Michael Horowitz has a Twitter account, tweet it at him, email it to his office, demand that these individuals come forward and deal with this criminal activity. This is the plug in the drain to the swamp. I will be back tomorrow, strikes or otherwise. People should be watching on periscope.tv/CSTheTruth, on Facebook Live, the Crowdsource the Truth Facebook group, moderated by Casey. People can go to vk.com and join a Russian social media network if they want to avoid the unconstitutional strikes that people are doing on the YouTube videos. People who are not standing up and accusing, making their accusations, they're hiding. They're hiding behind anonymous accounts. They're gaming a system on YouTube that allows them to make these cowardly, petty complaints. But I won't use up any more time. Something's going on. Am I still there? That's going to be all for tonight, everyone. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Until next week, and I may have another another big presentation for you next week. So come and join us because I'm not going to stop till this is done.
Absolutely. Harmon Wilfred is America's first refugee, and you're watching Crowdsource the Truth. Thank you, everyone, for watching.